Hi, I'm Seamless, and this is the 18th 20K tutorial video. This one was requested by Reddit user Deathladder99, I think, 99, some numbers, Deathladder and some numbers. And I'd like to thank you, Deathladder and some numbers, for requesting me to do a Noisia base that I can actually do. This one is from Noisia's Earthquake remix, and it was described as the one that sounds like it's oscillating pretty fast. And it's cool that you key into that because the way that I approach this bass is that we want to make like the Reese kind of rhythmic modulation and kind of sound. Only we want it to be synced. We want it to be like a beat sync, and you can do that with Reese's. You can just time, you can you can increase or decrease the pitch depth of your unison or your detune amount between two saws, and then you can control it. But if you do that, if you want to go certain speed or slower or faster, you're detuning your sound, so it's kind of not going to be in tune. So the other way that we can do this is we can actually analyze the anatomy of a Reese and why this happens. And long story short, when you detune two basses that are played together, despite that they're both saw waves, so that means they're both saw waves. So when you pitch one against the other, they're going to be different size saw waves in terms of their period length, which is what determines pitch in an oscillated sound. And this means that as time progresses, the phase between them is going to change, and then eventually they're going to align for a second and phase cancel. And what we key into when we hear this sound is the fact that the fundamental tone, the actual note of the bass, is oscillating. I just realized I haven't played the sound yet, so I figure I should, since we're talking about the sound. And you see here I have a harmonic open, and I have an LFO. And what I've done here is I've split the sound into two primary components. And this component is everything minus some minus a couple harmonics. You can see in like the low mids I've gotten rid of a couple. And then I've also gotten rid of the fundamental, and then the B part is just a fundamental plus some extra business. That decided sounded good. But the reason why I've done this is because I want to attenuate the fundamental rhythmically, and then that change because when you distort, because this is about distortion obviously, but when you distort a whole sound, like a whole spectrum sound, the bass is louder than everything else. So in order for the bass to be heard at the level of all the other sounds, it's going to be more powerful, which means that when you're distorting it, it's going to overpower everything else. And so when you remove the bass for a second, all the other frequencies kind of come in as they're being crushed together with distortion. So if you remove the bass and you bring it back, you create this sort of warble. You create the warble, which is sort of like the source of an original Reese's phase cancellation. So we control that manually. I just set it to a speed right now, but in Harmer's LFO options, you have the option to tempo sync it, and then you can move the speed, and it'll snap to parts that make sense in tempo syncs. And then I also put the same LFO on part A, just a little bit to kind of add in the make sure the same speed. Yeah. To kind of drive home the sort of the difference in pitch, and difference in volume. I could just remove it. But sometimes having more accentuated tone can be kind of cool. Sometimes having that also on the not fundamental frequency, blah, 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 that can be neat. So that's a pretty basic thing. The idea is that we split A and B between every other harmonic and then the fundamental in B, and then we use it to attenuate the volume with the LFO. Or you could just manually control it, like I did with the Mantis bass in one of my other 20K tutorials. I just put the volume and linked it to Mod X and actually manually automated it. You could do that too. And it would probably be easier to make a tempo sync that way. But other things that we're doing include distorting it to just all get out. Just distortion and compression. I decided to use the bit crush distortion, which is not actually a bit crusher. it just kind of it just has that sort of style to it. I'm not really totally sure why they call it that, but it's a okay distortion. The unison that I decided to do, I just kind of experimented with it until I arrived at this location. This is one of those sounds because if you listen to the sound in the Noisia track, it's oscillating, but the character of the sound is static, right? So then what I did is I did the thing where I automate the unison to shut up after a moment to ensure that the sound doesn't actually travel. There's no movement in the sound after that beyond the LFO. So the only motion that's in the sound is the one that we have total control over. Yeah, and then so this means that tiny changes in the pitch and the phase of the unison will actually create drastic changes in the overall sound. So arriving at the settings that I did was mostly a matter of trial and error. So then I EQ'd it a little bit. Also, you may notice in the distortion section, the distortion by default has the filter setting so that there's not a lot of highs coming out. I actually let it go with that this time to keep it less highs. I usually like to keep the highs in there because I like to have everything I can to work with later. Because I'm usually trying to resample something, but I'm not going to resample the sound, so I want to make it work the way it's supposed to work. So I EQ'd it a little bit, made it a little notch, and then compressed it. Most of the compression is going on up in the master. I just wanted to use the soft saturation in a bit to keep it at 0 dB, but then I, wave shape it. I had just the tiniest space between the zero area and the bottom, and this is, as I've just been doing a lot of during the 20K tutorials, is just a bit of pulse width modding kind of thing. That's not actually what that is, but I have just been saying that, so just to keep the theme going, I'm just going to keep saying that. And really what this does is that the farther in you go, the more, sharp, there's more space is introduced, because what this is the in-out graph. So this means that as it approaches nothing, it just cuts off for that time period. And if you have a rhythmic sound like that, cutting it off can kind of work to your advantage. Or, high values can sometimes suck. But having a little bit added in, works for me. Now, this isn't the exact sound, but this is how you get that sound. This is the sound class. This is the class of sound that was created in that track. I'll include the FLP. I'll make a pattern or something. Ta-da! And this will be up for grabs on the description. Yeah. All right. Hope this was helpful. I am moving on.